I started very young in Australia. So it was a child runaway. So anyway, I couldn't get awake fast enough. So off I went and went to a festival and ran into a guy called Philippe Petit, who was going down to Sydney. The festival was Nimbin, but Philippe Petit was going down to Sydney to do one of his commando tightrope walks. So I jumped on board with that, and that was really my first hands-on thing with production, was helping them get all that together and do this commando sneak, tightrope walk across Sydney Harbour Bridge. So that was my first taste of it. And then shortly after that, um, I met a production person, a tour manager actually, and it was my first actual time in a club, and it was the Whiskey in Sydney, and it was some American soul band or something, because it was, there was a lot of R&R, American Soldiers and all that sort of stuff. And I was fascinated, because it was like, all of a sudden he's like, oh, we'll stand here and watch the show. And he put me next to the front of house desks, and I'm like, oh, what are those, and then I'm noticing someone bringing up stuff onto the stage. And so I spent the whole show watching everyone but the band, just going, what's that person doing? What's this person doing? You know what I mean? So it was like, it was really interesting to me, and I kept asking questions and stuff. And so from that, I kind of ended up getting a job actually, which was kind of funny, and started working in the industry as a backline doing guitars. And then I moved down to Melbourne, because the band I started with that hired me was from Melbourne. So I moved down there, and then very early days of Mushroom House with Michael Gudinski, just starting out, and Frank Stavala and, Ray Evans, all these people from very early, industry. I got offered a job working for a band that was coming down from Sydney, so, and that band turned out to be AC/DC. So I ended up doing their backline for a while, then their front of house sound. And then they were going to take time off to do their third album. And I jumped ship because I wanted to learn more. I've always wanted to learn more. I'm not happy just doing a job well. It's like, I want to know everything about it, or I want to learn more about something else that's related to it, So I'd already done backline and front of house sound. And I got offered a job with Paul Dainty at the time, had his own crew that he was running for all the international tours, and they needed a lighting person. So in a very short time, I'd done like several international tours, and I left to go to England and, and continue doing lighting. I did lighting for a really long time, and, ran a band, Status Quo bought their own lighting rig, and I ran that for them. Then I took that into a production company. And so then I ran the lighting department in the production company in England. And then when they opened up in America, I transferred over to work in the States with them. So, it's been one of these, it's been very constant, and always changing, always evolving, so many different bands along the way, all different styles of music. It's to me, people say, what's your favorite band? And that's the question drives me nuts, because I relate it to the time you spend with them, how they are as people, what they like to work for, what the crew's like is so important. I did Ozzy Osbourne's first solo tour, for example, the Blizzard of Oz tour. It was a nightmare. It was horrible. But the crew were amazing. They were such professionals and all such top of their game, and they'd been brought in to do this tour to keep it together. I love them, and that's the only reason why I stayed on the tour, because it was just a nightmare. But, and there's other bands, who you think are going to be really interesting and good, and they're just not, So it's one of these things where it's like, for me, I will always pick a tour by the crew more than by the music. I've just evolved, and then did logistics for a long time, and logistics became a thing, when it got to the point where there was these huge productions and they had to get from A to B, and there weren't scheduled flights that could get them there on time, or to the city or the country that they needed. So that was like a huge learning curve, and I loved that. It was just such a nightmare. I loved it. It was like you've got 20 balls up in the air every second of the day and night, and it was just, I thrived on it. Then for some reason, people started calling me and saying, we want to write a book about you, or do this or that. And I'm like, what on earth are you talking about? And they go, well, you've been mentioned in several books already. And it's like, no, no idea, because that was never a goal, you know what I mean? But anyway, so eventually from that, what came about was I realized that, you know, if someone was going to write the story, it best be me, because otherwise, you know, they wouldn't get it. So all of a sudden now I'm a published author, which is quite interesting. And I'm loving it, loving doing it, which is very strange, because I was never, ever an academic, never. I was always into the arts, always arts. It was music, it was art, it was drawing, it was art history, it was ancient history, anything that was like creative and interesting, but never, ever anything to do with, my God, English. English is a major, you know. And now I'm doing courses at UCLA here. It's like hilarious to me. But it's just all a journey, isn't it? The industry was at a point up until January 2020 where it was at a peak. It was at a peak technically, it was at a peak performance-wise, it was at a peak capacity-wise. I don't know if it could have got any bigger, you know, but it was sustaining itself. It was staying right at the top of its game. And it was a beautiful thing, you know, everyone was working, there was plenty of work going around, plenty of money going around, tickets, shows were selling out, and they were good shows, they were good quality shows. So audiences were happy, everyone was happy. Then all of a sudden, boom, stumble, fall, break a leg. You know, what are you going to do now? So we've just got to start all over again. I mean, you know, the heart's been taken out of it. You know, the heart's been taken out of it. Anything that kept the industry going and was contributing, a major contributing factor to it, has been stopped. And we don't know when that's going to start again. The major thing that we took for granted, which is a sign of the times as well, I guess, is travel. Travel, getting all of these things from A to B and then C, D, E, you know, down the road, from country to country, from city to city, you know, whether it's tour buses, whether it's flights, whether it's hotels, whatever it is, all of that is gone. I mean, it's going to have a huge, huge impact. Even in the coming back stage, it's going to have a huge, huge impact. I mean, for example, your average tour bus sleeps a crew of 12 people with one bathroom. I mean, you can't do it. You can't do it. Even if you halve it and put 6 on, you still can't do it. What are you going to do? I mean, over here, we're at the will of the CDC anyway. So the Centre of Disease Control. I'm sure it's the same in Australia. So even if they say, you know, you can get back on a bus, there's going to have to be sterilisation happening constantly throughout the day and the evening. There's going to be temperatures taken. There's going to be one person gets sick, everyone gets sick. I mean, that's a proven thing. It's a joke. Don't catch a cold, for God's sake. It's going to take us all down. Well, now don't catch this, for God's sake. It's going to take us all down, but with more severe results. There's been a lot of panel discussions and things called town hall meetings over the internet, etc. And I've been privy to a lot of those and some of the biggest names in the industry. And after 2 hours of bouncing ideas around, there's still no answers. How can you control an audience? You can't control an audience. The minute the house lights go out, it's a free-for-all. What are you going to do? So, I mean, even if, you know, some states are opening up over here, and in England, places like Devon, etc., which are very calm now, they're saying, you know, we're going to test these areas and see. So in the States here, they're about to start testing certain states. So the industry is getting excited. Oh, we can start doing shows. I think that's a major, major, major bad idea. Very bad idea. You know, I mean, even if you're in a club that holds 200 people, what do you do for security to get them in and out? What do you do for restrooms? How do you say you've got to stay 6 feet apart? The minute the house lights go out, the band goes on stage. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. If you're mixing alcohol with that, you know, and people are getting a little loose or whatever, or someone wants to get to the bar, or they're yelling because they're trying to order a drink, you know, a mask falls off. Do they have masks on? Can you keep the masks on? It's something that just can't be controlled. It's like wrangling cats. You can't do it. I find that it's going to have to change dramatically, you know, and the production crew is going to be the one that's hit. They're going to be hit because of budgets. So you know, I mean, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you here, but if it goes to a venue situation, it's going to have to be a controlled seated venue. I see. I don't see bars and clubs having anything right now or in the near future. And even with that, you've still got the same problem of bathroom access. You've got merchandising access. You've got refreshments. You've got whatever it is. You can't time that one person goes to the bathroom every 2 minutes. It just doesn't work like that. If there's half the audience, there's only so much you can increase the ticket price. And I don't see that that's even going to be possible to increase ticket prices, because everybody's going to want to do shows. And that's going to mean promoters are going to go, well, this is what we can pay you. Because they're going to not be sure either. You know, I mean, I'm not making the promoter the bad guy, but they're the ones in it purely for business. They're not in it for the music. They're in it for the business. They're being counters. All of a sudden, if they go, okay, we've got a venue, we can only put, it's a 1,000-seater venue, they're only letting us put 600 people in it. The bands come halfway across the country to do this show. What we need to do is we're going to put them in a place that they don't have their own production. We're going to put them in a theatre that has its own lights, its own PA. That's all going to be rigged before the band even appears, so there's no contact. The band's going to come in and have to deal with whatever's there. They may get a couple of crew people, maybe their lead backline person, maybe their front of house sound, maybe a lighting person, depending on the band. They might not even get that. You know, will they have a tour manager traveling with them? They'll have to have someone to deal with accounts and logistics and stuff. So maximum, you're looking at 4 people from what probably would have been a 20-man crew. And what are they going to get paid? Because they're not setting up the gear. They're not doing anything. They're just turning up. And if they say no, there's going to be 1,000 other people standing behind them going, I got a family to feed. I'll do it. I think it's going to be brutal. I think it's going to be seriously, seriously brutal. I straight away, right now, we've lost at least 40% across the board of production people who won't be able to come back. So the 60% that's left is not going to necessarily be the cream of the crop. They may go to a hotel that says, yes, we've totally steam cleaned everything. We've sterilized everything. How do you know that? And maybe they did, but then someone went, I forgot to change the towels, and runs in, and it's over. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, there was a huge bed bug invasion over here, you know, at one point, and the Four Seasons hotels was getting them. You know, people are going, I'm staying in a Four Seasons hotel. What is this? They found out that one of the employees had laid down on one of the beds and had a nap. And from that one move, the whole hotel got infected. And it's just the same thing. It's like, you can't see it, so you can't stop it. You don't know where it is. And that's the same thing, whether it's getting on and off a bus. Who's responsible for that? Say 6 people on a 12-berth bus and a driver, and the driver's taking temperatures each day before he lets them on and off. Well, what happens if after a show someone goes to get on and they've got a temperature? Are you going to leave them on the side of the road? I mean, how is that even addressed? And by the time they have a temperature, it means they've already got it. You know, the temperature doesn't come immediately with the virus, so they've already been on the bus with somebody. Who's liable? Does the road crew person then go, I caught it on your bus, and sue the bus company? Does the bus company go to the management company and go, one of your employees infected my bus? I mean, who's going to insure a show, for God's sake? No one's going to want to insure a show. You know, whether it's 200 people coming in or 2,000, or God forbid, 20,000, but, you know, whatever it is coming in, again, all you can do is take their temperature, you know, and so a week later, half of that audience has it. Who sues who? And that's what's going to happen. Everyone's going to want to sue someone, because that's how they are, you know, and it's sad, but that's how life is, you know. So that's the other thing that's scaring the heck out of everybody, is like liability. What happens with the liability? I mean, how does that even get tracked, you know? And one show, it's only going to take one show and everything's going to be shut down again with the industry. It'll be just totally, the plug will be pulled, and it'll be like, it can't happen. We can't do it. So what happens then? Somehow, somehow I missed SARS. I guess I was touring somewhere or something. I don't know what happened. I missed that whole SARS outbreak, or didn't take it, or it was totally unaffected by it, or whatever. But this one, for some reason, it I pricked up my ears. I went, hang on, now it's in Europe, Italy. Italy? How did it get to Italy, for God's sake, from China? And then New York. It was like, New York, hang on, this is serious. So what, it was about February, beginning of February. It was around that time that I spoke to my publicist, because I was meant to be coming to Australia to launch my book, and said, do we have a plan B for this? There's something going on here and I don't think it's good. And immediately, when travel became an issue, like with borders closing and stuff like that, I mean, then it's like the industry is dead in the water. Personally, I've lost a whole year's worth of scheduled work and events, so can I complain about it? No. I mean, I could sit here devastated and go, oh my God, what am I going to do, and worry about it? But that's not going to change anything. I think that's a thing with production people as well. We're used to dealing with big problems and we're used to fixing them. What's tricky is we can't fix this one. So it's really frustrating to us, and it's affecting a lot of people, making them like, whoa, because we're alpha types, it's like, what do you mean I'm not in control? So it's like, that's a little rough, and the fact that you can't control strangers on the street. You just can't control people. It's like, can you put your mask on? It's on your chin. It doesn't do any good on your chin. I mean, I'm staying indoors, so, I walk my dog. I've got a system down where I ride my bike everywhere. If I go to the store, I take my bike and I only buy as much stuff as I can carry. So I'm not using shopping carts. I'm not using their bags. I'm not using anything. If I can't put it in my backpack in 2 bags to put in my thing on my bike, then I'm not getting it. So I'm in, I'm out, just stay away from people. There was a little brief second there where I was getting a little snappy. But then it was like, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. Because if these people are that out of touch with what's going on, then me snapping at them is not going to help anything. It's not going to change anything. There's a food bank up the road, try to volunteer for that. And that was a nightmare. It was like, oh, I don't know how we can do, so it's just like, you just try to help people locally. Whatever you can do locally in the area, that's what I'm doing. I'm involved in a lot of, like podcasts and things like that, where, we're talking about, don't panic now. We've got a long way to go. If you're going to panic, wait 6 months and panic. If you start panicking now, you're going to be a basket case in 6 months' time. Just pace yourself. And just like the rest of us, we don't know when it's going to end. Stop saying next month, because you're just going to be setting yourself up for a fall. Now, I think that's the worst thing that people can do, is keep trying to put a timeline on it, because you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to drive yourself crazy. I mean, people are going like, oh, okay, so if I spend this much this month and this much this month, and then I can start work in August. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know it's not going to happen, but I really don't think it is. And again, as far as production goes, unless there's an immunization, I don't see anything happening. Everything's running so slow because of this. So people are nervous about spending budgets and how they're going to do it and what they're going to allocate. But that's sort of on a side burner, and apart from that, I've started a second book. If I get 3 chapters of that together, I can present a proposal and see where that goes. If you can better whatever your skill set is at the moment, if you can better it, do it. There's tons of courses being offered for free, actually. Unfortunately, none of mine are. but there's a lot of production courses that anyone, anywhere in the world can join. It's not restricted to a country, so it's not regional. So if you want to learn about the latest, console for lighting, if you want to learn something about sound or backline equipment, guitar effects, whatever it is, every single production company is offering free tuition. And these are courses that normally run at, like $100+ a class. And they're courses, they're full courses that they're offering. So, if people aren't taking advantage of that, they're going to get left behind. Because again, we're going to have so few jobs that if you're not up to speed with everything, you're going to get left behind, no matter how much they like you. I know you. Yes, I've toured with you 10 times before. I've known you for like 15 years, but you don't know how to drive this desk. And I need someone who knows how to drive this desk because I can only bring one person. These courses are for people who don't know and want to learn more, and also, again, groups, that I work, there's like Sound Girls org over here, which focuses on the females in the industry, and not just sound. I mean, it started off as sound because it was originally set up by Carrie Keys, who's Pearl Jam's monitor engineer, has been forever. So, she saw a need there. So that's been a really good foundation for people. There's roadie net, there's different groups out there and there's even panels starting and Zoom meetings for mental health and stuff over here starting up, which are run by a couple of like major production people, but then their guests each week are professionals in the fields. So it's all related around how you're feeling, what's going on. Don't do that to yourself. Come and do this. This is what's going to help you. Hopefully, if not, we'll find something else, I mean, I think it's really important to support each other at this point. It's really important because it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. So, and if you're able-bodied, you've got to go out and get a job doing something else. You've just got to do it because it'll help you mentally anyway. Leave your ego in the drawer. Okay, you just got off the road with U2. They don't care. There's shelves over there that need sacking, and it's going to help people. There's a company over here called Upstaging, which started off as a lighting company, then became a trucking company as well, and then full huge production company. Now, they were the first that I'm aware of that actually converted their warehouses over to start building equipment for first responders. So whether it was the full face masks, they were doing that, but they also, because they're a lighting company, they had power distribution, they had trussing. So they're building pop-up hospitals outside the hospitals. They can truck them there. They can supply all the power to run them, and they set them up. And then they go off and find another place that needs it, and off they go. And then at the meantime, people who are used to putting on huge production shows are putting together little plastic face masks and stuff, I mean, it just makes you so proud. We're used to figuring out problems. We're used to thinking outside the box. We're used to running, working standing, we don't sit down and have these huge conference meetings and pass everything through with like red ink or whatever. It's like, okay, we need this now. What are we going to do? Okay, what if we do this? Boom, and that's how we work. So, I mean, if we were, I mean, we've kind of become more respectable over the years, production people, but there's still a bit of a thing about us, you know what I mean? But, if the government was smart, they'd put every single production person to work like that, because we'll get it solved. We'll totally get it solved, and we'll do it 24-hour shifts, as opposed to, oh, I've got to stop, I've been standing for 6 hours. You know what I mean? Because that's what we're used to. We're not better than other people. We're just trained and think differently. That's the difference, and that's what they need right now. I've been looking into, NAM, the last NAM I went to, I actually spent the whole time with VR people, checking out what they're doing and seeing how that all worked, and podcast people, funnily enough. So look at this. So here we are. But I think it's really interesting. There's like ultra reality and there's virtual reality. And between the two of those, you can do a show without leaving your house. I mean, for the larger bands, the ones that won't go into these theaters with like one person in every 3 seats or whatever, eventually, if that's what they're doing, that's what everyone's thinking is going to happen. I think it's a really bad idea. But here, if you go virtual or ultra reality, you can have, again, you go into a film studio stage, set up the band. The band's not there. The only people there are the ones that need to set up that basic equipment. Everything else can be virtual. It can be filmed with drones. You don't even need a film crew. You can film it with drones. The lighting designer doesn't have to be in the same town. He can be in, I mean, I was just talking to a good friend of mine in Texas, And he's been working on all this stuff for like about a year now. And we've been going backwards and forwards because I'm really excited about it. I think it's really kind of cool. And he's like, you know, I could do a show from Texas. He said, if someone plays the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, I can be operating the show from Texas. He said, because the technology is that good now that they can get over the slight delay. You know, there's a little bit of a lag time, but now they can get over that little lag time. I don't know if he could operate a show in London or Australia from Texas, but you know, it's set up. You know, and the ultra reality. I mean, they've already tested it with baseball games and stuff, you know, and they put in like these huge projectors, and it's like you're there in the field. But again, to go back to the concert, you've got a band on stage, you've got this virtual show happening. You can even project an audience into the room. You know, the film industry's been doing it forever. You know, like those dinosaur scenes in Jurassic Park or whatever. Those dinosaurs aren't running across the field, you know what I mean? Or the hordes that climbed over the wall of China. They may as well be punters at a show. What a kid, I mean, to me, I think it's kind of exciting because you put on a virtual headset and like set, and you can be in the front row of that audience. You can jump on stage and stage dive off it. Who's not going to want to be in the front row of every show? You could watch it from the side of the stage. You know, you're breaking that barrier that's been so like held in such high esteem for so long, and all of a sudden every single person in the audience can be in that position if they want to, or they can be there, or they can be there, or they can be up there. You know, I mean, it's exciting. How does the band feel playing to an empty room? You know, it's something that, you know, the problem with that is you go down that road, will it ever come back? Will you ever come back from that road? Probably not. You know, I mean, it'll be a novelty, you know. I mean, like Glastonbury is officially, I think, the biggest festival and most established festival each year in the world. You know, Glastonbury has that, you know, esteem to it. And I doubt if that's going to happen next year. Then, you know, I mean, they should have started planning it. You know, they haven't started anything for next year. They don't know what to start. What can you start? You can't book a band. You know, who's going to give an advance to a band? A hold. Who's going to give a hold to a band right now? There's bands that have shows booked still that they had tours starting, and the promoter's gone, you know, like Stiff Little Fingers, for example. That's back down to small venues. You know, the promoter's like, well, you know, let's just change the date. So they've changed the date, pushed it to the end of August, right? But family members of the band are going, you're not going out there in August. Hell no. You know, so it's not even just the musicians and the management company, it's families involved, attached to all of this, you know? So it's like, what are you going to do? You know, who's going to take that first leap? If it's a club environment, the band takes that first leap and it goes horribly wrong. How are they going to get over that? See, you're not going to come back from it. You know, that could be the end of your career, you know? What else do you do? I don't know. And the thing with the VR is it'll take away you're a punk band, man. We can't take a chance on you with an audience. You know, we can't control the audience, you know, because that's the other thing that really bothers me and for some reason keeps coming back in the back of my mind is if they're opening venues and trying music and shows, is that going to be a ticket to actually censor things? Like, no punk bands allowed because we know the audience can't be controlled. No, you know, death rock or whatever. No this, no that. Then all of a sudden it's a censorship. How do you get out of that? That's a slippery slope, you know. But if it's virtual, you can be you know, like I say, stage diving. You can do whatever you want in your living room. Without virtual, I see this whole censorship thing looming. You know, certain parts of America, certain parts of the world, you know, that have sort of tolerated certain types of music because there's money in it. But now, you know, I mean, people are using religion for this anyway, you know, like, oh, I'm protected by God, I don't need to wear a mask, I'm carrying a gun. It's like, wait, what? You know, so I mean, what's the next step? It already happened. It happened in the 80s. They were burning albums again, you know, and it was saying it was like, you know, Satan or something in the records. And, you know, AC/DC got hit with it. A couple other bands got hit with it, you know. So it's there. It's just been bubbling away under the surface. So there's no way that that's not going to rear its ugly head as well, you know. So I think it's really, really important to protect music as a whole. It's like the Bolshoi Ballet is great, but give me some rock and roll. You know what I mean? It's got to be. You've got to have everything. You know, you've got to be able to choose, because that's an integral part of music. You know, people feel different parts of it in different ways. You can't be told what to feel. I hope, you know, there's a day soon where music can do what it's meant to do, where live production can do what it's meant to do. I mean, you can't beat it. You know, you can't, whether it's a 100 person capacity club or whether it's a 20,000 seater, you know, you've got whoever's in that audience, when those house lights go down and that band walks on stage, they all feel one thing. And you can't feel that at home alone. You can't. You know, it doesn't matter. All classes get lost at that moment. At that split second, when the house lights go down, the band walks out, and the audience all yells. You've got kids, you've got parents, you've got people with medical, financial problems, you've got the elitists, you've got everybody there, but they're all feeling the same thing, and they become one. And that's what it does.